This example assumes a scenario with a vertical service provider requesting to the NGPaaS operator to deploy a specific service. The VSP defines the business case and agrees with the NGPaaS operator the deployment on its infrastructure. This will result in a SLA between these two parties where both will define the service conditions. To perform the work, the NGPaaS operator hires vendor 1 to develop a specific service component, let's say RFB1. Vendor 2 is also hired to develop RFB2. After that, the operator creates the Dev-for-Operations instances for these two vendors, Dev-for-Operations Instance 1 and Dev-for-Operations Instance 2. These instances contain the CBTR, monitoring and management frameworks customized for each vendor. The operator also creates a specific Dev-for-Operations integration instance for himself in order to integrate the different components coming from the different vendors. After this, vendor 1 can start its own C and CD processes. Same with vendor 2. This is expected to be done on the vendor's development infrastructure, especially on the very initial stages, and on the pre-production operator's infrastructure, especially on the final development stages. Once vendor 1 considers its component is ready for releasing, it can be stored on the RFB's repository in the BaaS layer. Same with vendor 2. Once the components from both vendors are available, the operator automatically starts executing the integration test batteries on its specific Dev-for-Operations integration instance. In this case, we will assume a failure is detected in the component provided by vendor 1. After this, vendor 1 is informed, so the C and CD processes continue on his side to debug the component. Once a new version of the component is ready, the integration tests are executed again at the operator's side. We will assume that after this second iteration everything is fine, so a service RFB is stored in the services catalog in the BaaS layer. This service RFB is a compound component containing the work provided by both vendors. Since all the integration tests were passed, it can be tagged as a production-ready RFB. Once this is done, that RFB can be deployed on the operator's production environment. This could be an automatic process, or more likely, a human-triggered process on a specific time slot and under controlled circumstances. Once the software is being executed on the production environment, the monitoring data can be propagated to the different parties, vendors, BSP, and the operator itself. Not all parties will receive the same monitoring data. The filters and the data analytics tools in the monitoring framework of the different Dev-for-Operations instances will be used to propagate only the relevant data for each party. Let's assume now an alarm situation is detected at the operator's side once the system is up and running. Different severity levels could be used to tag the different alarm situations. In this case, we will assume the system can continue operating, but a change is necessary in the component provided by vendor 2 to mitigate the alarm situation. So, a change request is propagated towards vendor 2, which starts applying the CI and CD processes again to solve the problem. Once a new release of the component is provided, the integration tests are executed again on the operator's side, using the Dev-for-Operations integration instance. Then, when all the test batteries are passed without failures, a new release of the service RFB is stored in the services catalog in the BaaS layer. Once it is deployed on the production environment, the alarm is cleared. Let's assume now the service is up and running without major issues since long time ago, and the contract between vendor 1 and the operator expires. Then, the vendor 1 specific Dev-for-Operations instance is removed. After a period, we can assume the same for vendor 2. The monitoring data of this service, which is still up and running on the operator's infrastructure, is still being collected by the operator using the Dev-for-Operations integration instance. Certain monitoring data continue also being propagated towards the VSP. But in this situation, the VSP could also request the operator to update the service in some way, for instance, to include a new functionality not considered initially. The problem is that in this situation, the vendors that participated in the development of the service are not present. This is solved by the operator by hiring a new vendor to implement the requested change. This vendor could be one of those participating in the original deployment, or a new one. After this, a new Dev-for-Operations cycle is executed, with the corresponding phases of planning, coding, building, testing, releasing, deploying, and monitoring. Thanks for your attention.